Hi, and welcome to Missed It by How Much. This is the channel that tests sports hypotheses by using computer game engines. And this is part 2 of my video essay on how I play action PC baseball like it's out of the park baseball. And at the end of the first one, we were talking about the salary balance sheet, where you have to keep the player for the contract duration. I just wanted to make one more point about that. When working on this balance sheet, at the end of the season, I have a total. In this one, it's over 61 million extra money that I have to roll over to the next season to pay for whatever players I want on my 40-man roster. So that's what I use this for. Also, like I said in the previous video, it keeps track of where players are located, so it makes it easy for me to move players around in the 2014 season, not just have to try to remember on my own. That is something that OOTP does better, but we've already talked about in the first video why I don't want to use that as the basis for my gameplay. Okay. In the next video, I'll talk about these other changes that I made during the season. I briefly touched on Aaron Herring. He's needed because of the loss of Beckett. He'll go into that spot as a starter. So I reversed that trade with Ramon Hernandez. But again, we'll speak on that in another video. The next topic we're going to talk about is verifying coverages. So for this, I'm going to have a hole at shortstop, and I talked about the one at starting pitching with Aaron Herring taking over for the Beckett reverse trade. So let's look at shortstop on the roster. Now, after I've made those trades, I don't have Nick Punto. Previously, I've traded Hanley Ramirez back to the Marlins. So I only have 4 players: Luis Cruz, D. Gordon, Justin Sellers, and Michael Young. And there you see how they rank according to, I guess, the computer's decision making, or based on how they played during the season, the real 2013 season. Either way, this is how I'm gonna have to figure out something, because we'll look at first at Luis Cruz as a candidate. He does play on the Dodgers, and he does play a mean shortstop at a 8 out of 10 on defense. He doesn't hit very well, though. However, the problem with him is he's only available until June 27th. At that time, because Hanley Ramirez was coming back on the real roster, he was cut and picked up by the Yankees, and then cut again, and then his season ended. So Luis Cruz is not going to be an answer for me for a complete season to play shortstop. So move to the next candidate, D. Gordon. D. Gordon is available the whole season. However, if you look at the manager tab, he's inactive a lot. He's inactive all of April. He's inactive all of June and July. And he doesn't even really come back except for a brief, less than 2-week period of time until September 1. So he's not the answer as a starting shortstop. Justin Sellers only played in 27 games. I'm going to tell you right now, he cannot be my starting shortstop. Let's see when he's available, according to the manager tab. And he's gone a lot as well. June 11th to September 30th. So I don't have enough players. And Michael Young, who I don't know how he even has a ranking for shortstop, because he was primarily a second and first baseman, somehow has a ranking for shortstop. He doesn't get traded to the Dodgers this season until September 1. So he's not an answer. So I need a workaround. And I don't want to take players from other teams, and then that creates a hole for their team. So what I did was I went on their baseball reference page. We're going to work with Gordon as my first candidate who has a chance. And I looked at his minor league at-bats. Here you see his at-bats. And for 2013, he had 374 at-bats in Albuquerque and only 94 with the Dodgers, which means even if he was injured during the season, he played the vast majority of the AAA season, which means also that he could have been called up, but the Dodgers elected not to. Remember, the real 2013 Dodgers had Hanley Ramirez that played shortstop and Nick Punto as the primary backup that played shortstop. So my workaround to be able to do that is to allow D. Gordon to play the entire Major League season. I looked up all of his transactions. I did not see any injuries for D. Gordon that season. If it was an injury situation, I would not mess with his availability. But it doesn't seem like that was the case. Seems like it was a managerial or general manager decision to not play him, at least not on the Major League roster. So here's the workaround that I use. I'm going to use the total at-bats, 374, in the minors, and add his Dodger at-bats, 94, to get 468. Now, how does that help? Well, let's go back to the game. Let's go back to D. Gordon's page. And he has, under the manager tab, a target at bats. This is how many he's supposed to have. Now, if you look at his real batting statistics that year, he only got 94 at bats. So how did that come about? That the target is 103 instead of 94? Well, after doing calculations with other players, I learned that it's a multiplication of 1.1. It's also used for pitchers for their total innings pitched. So we're going to take the 468 at-bats that he had in the minor leagues and the major leagues and multiply them by 1.1. And that number, we're going to round up to 515, is the total at-bats that I can use D. Gordon in this season. And we're going to type that into this spot. And we're going to do away with this. That's going to completely disappear because none of them had anything to do with an injury. And it's gone. And now he's available and he can be my starting shortstop. And then you can computer generate and do this over here. I will do the same for Justin Sellers, so he's available. I did not see any injuries, and therefore I still have a starting shortstop. Also, in the rotation situation, I lost Beckett, who was the number 5 starter. If I trade Harang, he can fit into this spot and fill in the daily starter spot that's gaping at the beginning of the season. Later in the season, the Dodgers make enough trades that I are okay with, that I approve of, that I don't need to make that change. But I'm going to have to reverse that trade until I get to, I believe it's May 13th, and there's no more holes. And then I will trade him back to Seattle so they can use him, because he did pitch the majority of the season with the Mariners. So that's my workaround, and try to actually not hurt Seattle. So I will make that change to their roster as well. This also has to do with a pitcher that the Dodgers have on their roster named Chris Withrow, and I'm going to show you his transactions from a different source. When you're looking up all this stuff about, are they being called up, called down, are there injuries, why is the player not there? You need a lot of different sources. You can see I'm using Baseball Reference. When I looked up the salary to take off Brandon League, since I didn't want him, that's one of the transactions I'm reversing for 2013. I had to find a salary, and the best Spotrac or Spotrac, depending on how you pronounce it, wouldn't give me the information without me paying for it. So that's not going to occur. So I had to kind of get an estimate from different places, and I just went with the average salary being 7.5 to get the term to put on the balance sheet, and that's how it got there. By the way, he will just be deleted. He will not go to a different team since he did play those 3 seasons with the Dodgers. With Chris Rithrow, looking at his page under pitchers, he was only used for 34.2 innings during the season, and he has a lot of inactive periods, which were not due to injury. As you look here, this page, the only reason he was on here was he's called up and down, except for at the end of September on the 19th, 20th, and 21st, he was day-to-day for personal reasons. So to change that and give me more flexibility to use him in the game, I'm going to clear all of his dates, except for I'm going to change it to reflect these personal days. So he will not be available the 19th through the 21st. So I'm going to go in manually. I'm going to put September 19th to September 21st. And then I have him, if I choose to, use him. Remember, in this game, you have a 40-man roster. I'm still not down to that yet. And I only have 25 players that can be active at a time. So there's going to be times when Chris Withrow will just be inactive. But now I have the option of choosing when those times are, instead of them being dictated to me based on Don Mattingly's decision or the GM at that time, Ned Colletti's decision. So that takes care of the coverage for shortstop, that covers the starting pitcher, and then I showed you exactly how to change the inactive period for anybody who has minor league options. If they don't have minor league options, you can't change anything. So limited by that. I'll show you, before we go, how I set up the season. Choices that I make to watch the game or play the game, what I'd like to look at. There you kind of get an idea. If you want to go back and pause those screens to watch, that's fine. Also wanted to show you, once it reloads, the rules that I choose, which are a little different. In 2013, instant replay wasn't really there yet. They were still playing around with it. I think that's a fun ability you have in this game, so I'm activating that. I'm not doing anything as strange as putting the DH in the National League as of yet, but I am going to start extra innings with a runner on second. I really wish there was an option to have a tie, like set the game to 10 or 11 innings, and then after that, it's cut off, it's a tie, and it's reflected in the standings as half a win and half a loss. That's not an option, so I got to go with the next best thing, which is I'm starting that in 2013 just because I don't want to wear out my bullpen in a regular season. There you see some of the other choices that I've made. Do not use rain delays, do not use rainouts, do not use ejections, because that's not going to get the best players on the field the most often. I don't like the 3-batter rule, so there's only one. Catcher fatigue probably would have been checked, except we're using as played lineups, so I don't think that's necessary. I know when I can play my pitcher, how often. Um, we're not going to even have 1 game injuries here. It's checked, but it's gone. Usage, I pay attention to that. I'll show you that page in just a moment. I don't put a penalty on it. It's my job to keep up and not do that. Also, I have that click to make sure that I pay attention to it. Clicked almost everything on here. So the pause comes up and I know what's going on. There you go. With all that, I'll show you the page where I keep track so I don't overplay somebody. But I do have the flexibility of using D. Gordon as my starting shortstop now. Usage batting under this prompt should show us the consecutive days that I can play him, the pace, and all that stuff, and also same for the pitching. So I'm not just taking advantage of the game by playing somebody who's really good more than they should have been. I'm just transferring the innings pitched or the at-bats from the minor leagues to the major leagues. And lest you think that's cheating, D. Gordon hit 234 that season. Although I would like to take advantage of his speed. So that's pretty much it. That's how I play it. Also noted, the 40-player roster has to roll over to the next season, and then I can make changes, but I cannot go over 40. So keep track of it. Use these worksheets. In the next video, I will talk about my team for the 2013 season, how I intend on playing them, and the worksheets that I use to do so. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time on Missed It by How Much.